What's going down? Happy Monday, everybody. I'm here with my guy Crock. Crock, what's going on, man? How you doing?
Oh man, what's good? What's good? What's going on? A lot of stuff going on in Niner land.
Yeah. We got this. Might be this show I'm doing right now with Crock here. I might have the most breaking news I've ever had on any show because there's a lot of things dropping right now. Today's the first day of free agency tampering period, legal tampering period. So we're gonna hear a lot of stuff. There's a lot of visits. There's a lot of restructures going on. We got a ton of breaking news. Do me a favor before we dive into all this breaking news that we're gonna share with you guys. Make sure you hit that like button and subscribe to both channels. Be much appreciated. But yeah, man, let's talk with the thing that happened last night first. 49ers to cut Arik Armstead, or he asked, I guess, to be a free agent, but basically they're cutting him. They probably approached him, said, hey, we need you to take a pay cut or we're going to trade you. And he said, just make me a free agent. Basically, that's assuming what happened. What do you think of that move, man?
I think it's tough, and I'm curious to see what the 49ers have planned. You look at the defensive line as it stands right now, especially in the interior. You have Javon Hargraves, and then who else, right? Like, it was already slim when you were kind of looking at the Javon Kinlaw situation and saying, like, okay, what's going to happen with Kinlaw? Is he going to be back, or, they're going to let him go? But we know he's a free agent, and likely he's going to get any kind of, big contract. But you feel a little bit more comfortable because it's like, well, at least you have Hargraves and Armstead. Yeah. And you let Armstead go because you're trying to, free up money. And it's understandable. He didn't want to restructure. Maybe he'll see what's out there. Maybe it's not a lot out there and he'll end up coming back. But I think there's going to be someone who is going to prioritize Armstead more than maybe the 49ers are right now. So, it was tough to see it. I think outside of the money aspect of it, you just think of him as a person and you understand the business of the NFL, but, just how big he's been with the 49ers community. He's always up for the Man of the Year award. I know how well he's done in Sacramento and, how much everybody loves him around there and everything he's done in the community there. So I think as a player and that more so as a person, they call him the blueprint, just a guy that is like a leader and staple of this team and was the longest tenured 49er, up until being this situation. So I think it's a little unfortunate, but definitely understand the business aspect of it.
Yeah, you brought up who do they have left. They got T.Y. McGill, Ernest Brown, Javon Hargrave, Kalia Davis, and Spencer Wagey. Those are your defensive tackles remaining on the 49ers. Javon Hargrave is the only one that's really a starter level caliber player. They're actually another breaking news that we're going to talk about in a minute is Javon Kinlaw. Looks like they're going to be trying to bring him back. But yeah, starting wise, Javon Hargrave, Nick Bosa, those are your starters that remain on the squad from last year. Arik Armstead's gone. Like you said, I do want to acknowledge what Arik Armstead has done as a person in the sack area. He's a really good person, very generous with his money and his time, helps the community a lot. And like you said, he's a leader. He's a team captain. So, I mean, if they're willing to do this with Arik Armstead, you got to think everybody's on the table right now for the 49ers.
I'd say everybody's always been on the table. I mean, you go back, and again, you can look at the Buckner situation however you want, but when you draft a guy number 6 or number 7 overall, Buckner was everything that you want that player to be. He was an all-pro caliber player. He was a tremendous leader. He was healthy, never missed any games. I think he missed like one game as a 49er. Awesome player. And they traded him, right? So from that standpoint, and obviously, like, since then, they take care of a lot of their big name guys, but they made it very clear to me that at any point anybody could potentially be on the table for the most part. So with Armstead in that situation, I mean, we don't seen how they get down. And again, guys just look at it as it's a business, and I think once you understand that aspect of it, it makes it a little bit easier to kind of take hits like this for Armstead.
Yeah, man, it's one of the worst contracts on the 49ers. Whatever you want to call it. It was a bad contract. And the thing about it that's kind of strange is if they designate it pre-June, they save like $2.5 million they can use right away. If they designate it post-June, it frees up $18 million, but they can't use it till then. But they still have some dead cap hits that they're going to be taking for this one. So the money is not as good as you would hope, but it does free up some stuff for the future. I think this is more about money for the future for guys like BA and Brock Purdy and things like that, because it's more about saving money down the line than it is right now, this instant. So it's interesting, man. But Arik Armstead, unfortunately hasn't been very healthy. Although when he is healthy, he does play well, especially in the postseason. It is a shocker, man, for the 49ers to move on from one of their team captains, the oldest tenured 49er. Who's the oldest now? Do you know who's the oldest?
So we asked this question last night on Locked On 49ers, and I think the conclusion we came to was it's probably Kyle Juszczyk and George Kittle. They both came 2017, and Juszczyk was first because he signed as a free agent. And then obviously, 2 months later, they end up drafting George Kittle. So technically, from the date that they became a 49ers, I think it's Kyle Juszczyk.
Speaking of, and we're going to talk about that. We'll talk about more about how they replace Arik Armstead in a minute, but more breaking news. Speaking of Kyle Juszczyk, another guy you brought up who also has one of the worst contracts. It's not the highest dollar hit contract because it's like $7.5 million total for Kyle Juszczyk, but that's a lot of money for a fullback. And breaking news: the 49ers right now are working on a restructure, or same conversation they had with Arik Armstead. That's the conversation they're having with Kyle Juszczyk. There's been no agreement thus far. They're basically saying take a pay cut or we got to cut you, man. What's your thoughts on that one with Kyle Juszczyk?
He's been taken care of pretty handsomely. I think the most surprising thing, especially if they're kind of giving him that kind of ultimatum, he's one of the, what do they call it, the Cabo crew or the
Cabo Click. Yeah.
Cabo Click. He's one of those guys. So he's in good with Shanahan. And again, business is business. We understand that element of it. But I've been on record, and I want to make these words very clear because 49er fans, sometimes like they take out of it what they want. But I've said, man, Kyle Juszczyk, he's a little overrated, but not from the standpoint of his abilities. But when I think of Juszczyk and why he's the highest paid, it's not just because he can block, right? Like you can get anybody to block. I think it's more so because of the other things, right? Like just his pass catching ability, the ability to, run the ball. He's a fluid athlete. He lines up in every position on the offense. And when you're not throwing him the rock, right? Because I think he maybe averages 1 catch a game for like the entire year and even less carries than that. I feel like you're kind of doing I don't want to say your roster a disservice because, again, I understand how he helps, but you can almost get any fullback to have 1 catch a game and block well without having to make him the highest paid fullback in the league. So I understand he brings a lot to the table, but if you were to, let's say, let him go and you don't have Kyle Juszczyk, I don't think the offense would miss a beat. Now, he's a smart player. I've heard of some of the things he does with line checks, with the offensive line and things like that. But I think people think that, like, oh, if you're a fullback, like, you can't get better than Kyle Juszczyk. He is terrific. I don't know how much you'll miss him if you take him out of the offense. Right. Somebody smarter than me might say, oh, no, he does all this, that, and the other. Maybe. But I don't think the offense will miss a beat.
Yeah, I agree, man. And it's just, it's the same thing with Arik Armstead. Like, he's a good player, but he's just not worth his contract. Kyle Juszczyk, great player, but ain't no way he's worth what the 49ers have him lined up to be earning this year. So it's business at the end of the day. I know he's in the Cabo clique, and I get it, but here's what I like about what the 49ers are doing. And we got a lot more breaking news to talk about, but here's what I like about what the 49ers are doing, and I want to get your take on it, Crock. I feel like they're just cutthroat right now. They're like, this, we got to make some moves. Sentiment aside, it doesn't matter. We got to do what's right for this team. We got to make some hard decisions. You saw that with Arik Armstead. You're seeing it right now with Kyle Juszczyk. And personally, I love that because it means that they're, we've heard this thing that the 49ers, they're a family, and they, if you're in the Cabo clique, you're untouchable and all this stuff. And that's a detriment to this team to me if that was the case. And right now, to me, the 49ers are showing that that's not the situation, that they're willing to cut whoever they need to cut or restructure whoever they need to restructure to get business handled.
It comes out to me, the weird part about it is when you have a quarterback with the rookie pay scale that Brock Purdy is on, I thought you weren't supposed to have these conversations yet. Now, again, maybe some of these moves are for the future, but I thought part of it, having a quarterback and you don't have to pay him was we keep the Armsteads around, we keep the Kyle Juszczyk around, we keep, a Brandon Aiyuk around. Like, you keep your team together. And then as we've seen with Buffalo Bills right now, they let Tre'Davious White go, they let his safety go. You start to see like, okay, well, we're paying our quarterback a ton of money. We have to make some of these cap moves. I feel like the 49ers are really there yet. So I am a little surprised, but again, maybe they are getting out ahead of something, or they have some intentions on bringing in some other big name free agents.
Yeah, man. And so let's talk about another breaking news right now. Apparently, Fred Warner already restructured last week with the 49ers, saving the 49ers $12 million. I don't have much more details than that. You know what's crazy, Crock, man? I had a whole offseason plan. Like, this show was supposed to be like, here's my plan, what the Niners should do, and I wanted to get your take on it. And a lot of the stuff I wanted them to do, they're already doing. So now it's turned into a breaking news situation. It was reported that Fred Warner already restructured, saving the 49ers $12 million. What do you think about that move?
I bet with his restructure, he's still getting his money. He's just getting it a different way. So, if it's something that helps the 49ers, I'm all for it. It's not like, let's restructure them and you're going to lose out on money. Like, you got to take a hit. I think it was Jimmy G took like a pay cut to stay with the 49ers. That was a 2022 season.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm. I don't think it's something like that. Like, he's not taking a pay cut. They're just moving some money around, maybe making something into a bonus. So he's still going to get his bread. So from that standpoint, if it helps the 49ers, let's go.
Yeah. And I just love it because the 49ers are freeing up cap space, meaning they're going to be aggressive in free agency. They got a thin defensive line at this point. So we're going to talk about what they're going to do in the free agency. But yeah, I wanted to bring this to your attention. Extending guys like Fred Warner is perfect because he's young, relatively young, and he's really good. He's proven himself, and it's not a risk. Like certain players, when you extend them, it's kind of a risk because, like Debo, for example, they could extend Debo right now, but I think that would be a mistake because he's 28 years old, seems to have already peaked, to be real. So it would worry me. But with guys like Fred Warner, it's smart. I wanted to run this by you, brother. So one of the guys on this list, here's some restructures the 49ers could make right now and save the team $39 million. I had this plan before I knew Fred Warner already did it, but Fred Warner is one of those guys. So if the 49ers either restructured or cut Juice, they're talking to right now, if they restructure Fred, which they already did, Charvarius Ward, Diamador Lenore, and they extend BA and Huff, that's $39 million the 49ers could free up in cap space. Are you cool with all those moves, or do you worry about any of them?
No, I'm cool with it. I think the biggest thing there is, Brandon Aiyuk and trying to see how the 49ers kind of value him. That's another thing we talked about on Locked On 49ers. I remember maybe right after the Super Bowl, I was talking to my big brother, and I'm like, man, and I've talked about this a lot. Anybody listening to Locked On 49ers, but I don't think the 49ers utilize Brandon Aiyuk the way I do. I think they view him as a piece of their offense, and within the structure of the offense, obviously he can have explosive plays, he can do well, but they don't feature him. So when they get into sticky situations like they did against Kansas City, at what point do you say, all right, we're going to do things to free up Brandon Aiyuk? Let's motion him to a tight split. Let's get him free releases. Let's design things to where we are 100% trying to get the ball into Brandon Aiyuk's hands downfield. They don't really do that. So I'm curious to see how much the 49ers value him when it comes to paying him. Are you going to pay him like a wide receiver one, even though when it comes to game planning, Debo Samuel and Christian McCaffrey are a bigger part of your offense?
Yeah.
So I wonder if, again, I would love to see them extend Aiyuk and make that happen. And he's going to be a long-term guy. But what do you think about it? Like, do you think that they make him enough of a focal point in the offense? I get the numbers in the sense of yards, but again, you're looking at targets and usage as opposed to these other receivers around the league. Like, it's not close.
Yeah.
So they don't value him from that standpoint, even though he does well. What do you think about that?
My hope is that it's shifting, Croc. My hope is that it's shifting. I hope they learn from the Super Bowl. They targeted Debo 11 times. He only caught 3 passes out of those 11 times. He could not get open in the Super Bowl. So my hope is that, and I want to talk about Debo in a second too, but my hope is that the 49ers are recognizing Brandon Aiyuk's value in this offense and he becomes number 2. Christian McCaffrey, Brandon Aiyuk. That's what I'm hoping is happening with the 49ers. But again, I mean, that's not what they showed in the Super Bowl. So they would have to have learned that in the Super Bowl and be moving forward. That has to be their attitude. That's my hope. Do you think my hope is dumbfounded? Do you think there's a chance that that's the case?
I think that they want to get the ball in Christian McCaffrey and Deebo Samuel's hands, as much as possible. And then, okay, here we go. Aiyuk is kind of your turn. We'll see if we do something for you right here. If CMC or Deebo aren't open or whatever. So I don't know.
Yeah.
I think it's a little hopeful. What you're thinking. I think even though he was the leading guy in the sense of yards and receptions, I think that's kind of by default a little bit. I think if Deebo Samuel played, didn't miss some of those games, and he had one game where he had 0 targets because he was like not expected to play, then he played. You have a healthier Deebo. I think Aiyuk still ends up getting less targets than Deebo.
Well, I want to talk about Deebo and BA a lot more with you. Before we move on, are you cool with extending Charvarius Ward and Demo as well as Huff?
I definitely would work on something with Deommodore Lenoir. With Huff, I wouldn't be in a rush to do it right now. And let's say he goes and he balls out and he has another All-Pro year, then you can franchise tag him and then come up with a contract situation for him. Then the safety franchise tag number isn't crazy as opposed to like a receiver or a quarterback or a tackle or an edge. So with Hufanga, I kind of let it play out, see how he recovers. Is he going to be a guy that we want to continue to have moving forward? And if so, which he does a lot of terrific things, I think I think he is, but you have that opportunity to see it. But Deommodore Lenoir, I work out something with him right now. Just his versatility, being able to play outside, being able to play inside, a guy that you can continue to kind of build around. I would make sure I lock him up. Now, Charvarius Ward, I'd be more inclined to let this play out with him. He does a really good job. I don't think for what they pay him, the usage has been exactly what I thought. I thought he'd be somebody that shadows guys a little bit more. I thought they play a little bit more cover one with him. Obviously, he has injuries. He's banged up here and there, and whether he's played through things, he's a guy I would let it really play out and then see at the end of the year, is this a guy that we want to keep? But Deommodore Lenoir, I'd make it a priority.
Breaking news, by the way, the 49ers just re-signed Brandon Allen. Just so you guys know, they're bringing Brandon Allen back. We got a lot to talk about, but what do you think about Brandon Allen coming back for the 49ers? Do you think he's going to be QB3 or QB2?
I think he'll be QB2. And, I think for most NFL teams, you don't want your backup quarterback to play, but you want your backup quarterback to just be somebody that is smart and can help the starting quarterback and is not really a threat to your starting quarterback. I felt like that with Trey Lance in the preseason. I felt like that's why they're probably let him go as opposed to Sam Darnold. I don't know if Trey Lance is your ideal backup quarterback, and the moment things go bad, I think he still has enough. What is he that fans will start calling for him if you have a kind of a little slump, which we saw the 49ers lose three straight games. If you have Trey Lance during that time, I mean, we heard people start saying, why isn't Sam Darnold getting in, right? I mean, crazy, right? Emotional fans. But if it were Trey Lance, I think those voices would be louder and maybe from the media as well. So I think you have a guy like Brandon Allen. He's not a threat to your starting quarterback, but he can help him day-to-day stuff. Just with the messaging, breaking down things. I've talked to Tyler Bray. He was a backup quarterback in the NFL for several years. And he talked about how his whole thing was just to get the starting quarterback ready. And I think Brandon Allen is that kind of guy.
Yeah, so I kind of wanted them to go after Gardner Minshew, but it sounds like they're going to go with Brandon Allen, and he's going to be your quarterback too, unless they draft or find an undrafted free agent rookie quarterback who somehow supplants Brandon Allen. I don't think that's likely. I think what we're going to see now with this news is Brock Purdy QB1, Brandon Allen QB2, and then a rookie QB3 practice squad type player. Would you agree with that, or how do you think it might play out?
Yep, Purdy Brandon Allen, and then you just draft a guy and see how much you like him. Again, the biggest thing is how much can a rookie get Brock Purdy ready during the season? Like, who's going to step in and just be that guy from day one to help Brock? So I think you lean more on a veteran, and then you just see like, hey, is there an undrafted guy that we potentially like to where we can have a long-term backup quarterback?
Yeah. I think that's how they approach it. Late rounder, undrafted free agent, something along those lines. Yeah. All right, man. More breaking news. 49ers working on a contract with Javon Kinlaw. I mentioned it earlier, but wanted to get your take. Do you think the 49ers should bring back Javon Kinlaw?
Yeah, I think he's somebody that's starting to carve out a role, although it's not the role I think, most people thought he would have when he was drafted number 14 overall. But he played well in his role, especially the last half of the season, including in the playoffs. So if he can kind of continue to just be that guy, a situational player, situational rundowns, a guy that can continue to carve out a niche and being the best rundown defender he can be. Maybe you never get like quite the pass rush guy that you thought you were getting when he was coming out of college. But right now with the 49ers, especially since it's so thin on that defensive line, you need guys that can have a specific role. I think Kinlaw is that guy.
Yeah, I agree. I think, I'm hoping that he's not being coveted as a replacement for Arik Armstead, right? I hope he's a depth piece and that he's just a rotational type player. But I think Javon Kinlaw had his best season last year, his healthiest season, his most productive season. He gives you a reason to be optimistic about Javon Kinlaw. And I think the 49ers can get him for cheap, and he'll be a rotational depth piece for the 49ers. So I think it's a good idea, and I think they end up working it out and bringing it back. I know Javon Kinlaw is going to miss Arik Armstead. That's kind of like his mentor, basically. Yeah. Another guy, George Odom, special teams ace. 49ers working on extension for George Odom. What's your thoughts on that one?
Oh, now that's again, he got paid solid money to be, a special teams guy. And, he missed some time due to injury, but ended up coming back. I know when I watch him on special teams, he's somebody that stands out. Not just him. I mean, we watched in the Super Bowl, Chris Conley, what he was doing. So, special teams to me, it's a big enough position, especially when you have guys that you want to be a focal point of your special teams. You make sure you bring them back. Maybe he also has some ability as a safety to play defense. I mean, he did that. And I think the 49ers got right now a little thin at safety. That's why I know we're going to talk about Rayshawn Jenkins, but they probably have to do more to kind of bolster that room a little bit. You have Hufanga coming off of an injury, and then you have Jair Brown, and we'll see, if he continues to take that next step, but you're losing, the other guys. So I'm curious to see if they are maybe planning to do a little bit more with Odom on defense, but at the very least, it sounds like he's potentially a like an insurance piece if a safety continues to go down or they can't bring somebody in.
Yeah, speaking of safety, so I'm going to jump to this because you brought it up, man. The 49ers are meeting with Rayshawn Jenkins, safety Rayshawn Jenkins. To me, that means that we're probably not going to see my guy Gibson, who I wanted back. I think he's probably going to be done. They're bringing in Rayshawn Jenkins, even though they got Huff and Jair over there. What do you think that means? Do you have any thoughts? Do you know anything about Rayshawn Jenkins?
No, I mean, I've watched him. Okay, so there's two ways to watch football, right? You can watch it just, like as a casual fan, and I do that a lot with college football, right? Because people ask me about prospects, and it's like, man, I just kind of watch games of them, but I haven't like really truly evaluated him. But if you we're able to see my screen right now, and I have like the tabs open, you'll see one. I'm watching an offensive lineman from what school is this kid from? He's a right tackle, but I think he's kind of going to be more of a guard. But anyways, regardless of that, I have not evaluated Rayshawn Jenkins. I watch him. I see him out there with the long dreads and the number 2 on and play for Jacksonville. But I never was like, is he good? I don't know. I saw my guy Rich Madrid say, oh, this would be a great signing for the 49ers. I don't know if Rich was just being funny. It's kind of hard to get his vibe sometimes. But it sounds like Rich gives him the stamp of approval.
Yeah, I'm Rayshawn Jenkins. The only thing I know about Rayshawn Jenkins is I remember him getting into it with Javon Jennings. Him and Javon Jennings was going at it. That's the only thing I really know about him, to be honest. But it does sound like that means Gibson isn't going to come back, which I don't know, man. I thought Gibson has been solid. Are you okay with Gibson not coming back?
I think that's going to be tough. But he talked about last year, the only reason why he really came back is because he wanted to play with Huff another year. So,
Yeah,
yeah, I expect him to be out of there. I think he was good for the 49ers. I think he was a playmaker. I think he had a really good career. You know,
yeah.
I watched a lot of his career. Uh, was a playmaker through and through and made a lot of plays for the 49ers over the last couple of years. So he's going to be a guy that is missed a little bit, but I think he is a replaceable piece as well.
Yeah, I just loved his veteran leadership, and he seemed to be very consistent and solid. One of the most consistent players on the 49ers. Didn't really have many bad games. Had a couple. But I think he'll be missed. We'll see what Rayshawn Jenkins, what they get out of him, and whether Jair Brown and Huff are ready to take the lead on this team at the safety position. But interesting implications meeting with Rayshawn Jenkins. Brother Bob, real quick, says morning, Ryan, OG, Mofo, Hensley, and E Crock All Stars. What's up, man? Nice to see you, brother. All right, man. Well, we got a lot to talk about. Let me go back up this list. 49ers working on a new contract with John Feliciano has been reported. What's your thoughts on that? Oh, I need to get your take on McKivitz too after this. Actually, we haven't talked yet about that. But what do you think about them bringing back Feliciano?
I actually, and I'll tie those two guys together. With the 49ers, you don't want to have a whole lot of turnover. You want guys that can potentially start for you. McKivitz, Feliciano, like those guys started a lot of games. Now, would you like to improve over them? Of course. But a lot of people are up in arms with this whole thing with McKivitz. I think being able to control him for the next 2 years, I think that's good for the 49ers. Again, locked up 49ers, we talked about it last night. Emmanuel Mosley, you go back some years. There was a time where it's like, okay, we like Mosley. Is he going to be here for a long time? Not sure. So what they did was they had him for the upcoming year, but they did some kind of extension for him, and essentially it was like a 2-year, $10 million total. And it allowed them to kind of control the situation, or at least have him at a cost-efficient number the following year if he was good that first year starting, which he was. So they had him for cheap the next year, even though he ended up getting hurt. And he was playing great to start that year. So, when I look at Feliciano, who, did solid for the 49ers, when I look at McKivitz for the 49ers, who first year starting, they give everybody else an opportunity to continue to improve. Oh man, this guy's only had this many starts. Like, just imagine when he gets more starts under his belt. Maybe McKivitz is somebody who will be like, a seventh swingman type guy when it's all said and done. But he started a lot of games last year. I'm curious to see, does he improve this year? If he does, then great. We have him for the cheap next year. If he doesn't, then all right, we have him for the cheap. But hopefully, whoever we potentially drafted, if you are able to get a guy, it gives them time to kind of get up to speed with how Kyle Shanahan wants them to do things. So I ain't mad at it at all. I think it also makes it to where you don't have to rush to draft a guy. Like, anytime Peacock and I talk about any other position, why are you talking about receivers? Why are you talking about corners? It's all about offensive line. You got to get an offensive line. They got to get better. I'm pretty sure the 49ers know that, but you're not going to force it. You're not just going to be like, all right, we got to get better on offensive line. So even though at 31, we have this tackle that's available as our, he's like sixth on our board at that moment, but let's leapfrog everybody else. Like, no, you draft best player available on your board. And if it happens to be a tackle that's right there, great. If not, then okay, we have a little bit of insurance and maybe we draft a tackle in the second round or third round, whenever it is. So I think it gives them a little bit more flexibility as well between Feliciano and McKivitz as well.
Yeah, man, I'll be real. I think the 49ers don't look at the offensive line like a lot of fans look at the offensive line. And I've been on the record for about a month telling everybody I think the 49ers starting five on the offensive line in week 1 is going to be the same starting five that we had in that Super Bowl. I've been saying that. People think I'm crazy for that because I took a poll of 70% of the 49er fans want them to address the tackle with the first pick in the draft, but I don't think the 49ers see it that way, man. That if you look at their past and how they're more concerned with guys that fit their scheme, that are solid, that stay healthy and do what they want to do. And McKivitz is kind of that guy for the 49ers. Now, I'm not saying that the 49ers aren't going to draft offensive linemen, but I would be really surprised if whoever they draft supplants McKivitz or Feliciano or Brindle. I think those guys are going to probably be your starters week 1, man. Do you agree with that, or do you think it'll be somebody else?
I think we've seen enough of how Kyle Shanahan moves, and I don't think he trusts very many guys, and he clearly doesn't really trust rookies. I don't think he wants to ride the waves of up and downs. I think when it comes to Feliciano and McKivitz, he probably knows exactly what he's going to get, for better or for worse. So that right there, unless again, a rookie, we saw Spencer Burford come in and start at right guard. But then we also saw quickly they don't really quite trust him, and they were rotating him in and out with Daniel Brunskill. And then eventually replaced him with Feliciano. But I think it takes a lot for Kyle to really trust guys. And if you told me today that the same start lineup they had last year is the same thing moving forward, I would say, yeah, I could see that.
Would you guess that? If you had to bet, is that what you would lean on, or do you think it might be a rookie in the mix?
I lean more towards that. If the 49ers had a higher pick, then I would say, oh no, they have an opportunity to really grab a top tier like tackle. And this is a deep tackle class. So maybe somebody that they really like falls at 31. But a lot of tackles, they just go high, right? Like the guys that you come in and you want them to start day one, those tackles, quarterbacks, and edge rushers, they typically, the guys that come in and are going to start day one, they go high. Other positions where you can get more value and still get a guy that comes in and plays day one right away, receiver, cornerback, safety, linebacker. You can kind of get those guys in any other, first 2 to 3 rounds, and a guy just come in and legit like, oh man, he's a starter, cool. But tackles, it's a little bit more rare. Even the Daniel Brunskill thing, like being a guard taken in the fourth round, he was a tackle, then they moved him to guard, and then from day one he's starting. Like I felt like that was rare. You see more of even with Aaron Banks. He got drafted 2nd round. And they made it a priority to get him. And he sat his entire rookie year. Now you could say, well, they're Laken Tomlinson. I don't think they like Daniel Brunskill like that, right? Like Spencer Burford came in and started over Brunskill right away. And Aaron Banks in college played left guard, and they had Tomlinson. What? Spencer Burford was a left tackle and then played right guard right away, right? So, I still think is again, if you told me they would stick with these guys and continue to kind of build that continuity on the offensive line because a guy isn't there at tackle and they want to maybe address a different position, I 100% see that happen. And I would lean more towards that being the case as opposed to reaching for a guy and then making him the guy right away. And again, unless they trade up for a guy, which we'll see.
Yeah, man, I've been saying it. People think I'm tripping. People are like, you're crazy. Ain't no way. But like, our perception of this 49ers team is not the same as Kyle Shanahan and John Lynch, man. And I really think that starting 5, I think you're going to have Jake Brendel, Feliciano right guard, and McKivitz right tackle, and of course Banks and Trent Williams on the left side. I think that's who's going to be your starters week 1. Sorry, 49er fans. I know a lot of you don't want that, but I think that's what's going to happen. Let's get these super chats real quick, man. We got a lot more to talk about. GTC says, man, my issue is still Kyle. He's a good OC, but my fear is he's the modern day Norv Turner, just good enough to get us there. Eddie would have fired him. What do you think, Crock?
I think it's tough, man. Hopefully I think there's some like key decision making that I ideally would like to see him improve on. You can kind of point to a play here and there where it feels like the 49ers should have won. Is it bad coaching or, more poor execution? And if it's poor execution, does that fall on his shoulders? If Jimmy Garoppolo completes a pass to Emmanuel Sanders, are we having this? So we're talking about one play. You know what I'm saying? Like that changes how we view a guy. I tend to lean more towards, I think he's a terrific head coach. And, it takes a lot to win it all. And hopefully, and again, a lot of it is predicated on that quarterback position. Needed a play from Jimmy Garoppolo, wasn't able to get it. I think Brock Purdy, while he played well in the Super Bowl, I think you need him to play amazing in the Super Bowl, and you didn't quite get that. So, I think as Brock Purdy, a guy who just came off his first year starting, as he continues to improve and turns into more of the guy, right? Like he played very well this year, but turns into like the guy in those moments where he elevates you above everything else, multiple times in the game, it'll be hard to win. But once he does that, once Brock does that, then you may see the 49ers rattle off Super Bowls. So I don't know if it's just Kyle can't coach a team to a Super Bowl victory. He just needs that extra oomph.
Yeah, I mean, and also, I pick on Kyle Shanahan a lot, and I don't necessarily disagree with everything you're saying here, GTC. I understand why you feel that way. but also he's 44. He's my age, Kyle Shanahan. We're the same age. That's relatively young in this game. And if he sticks around, I think eventually he'll probably figure it out. But I understand why you feel that way. Corey Matthews says Kool-Aid feels like the best value pick at 31. He kind of does, man. What do you think if the 49ers, if Kool-Aid fell to the 49ers at 31 and they got him, would you be mad at that?
Not all right now. He my CB1, man. I've watched a lot of cornerbacks so far, and I continue to kind of dive into the film. I think some people, he got some kind of Jones fracture or something like that in his foot right now. He'll be fine come training camp. But
yeah.
I love his game. He's twitched up. He has a set in this. He has a level of physicality to him. He can run very well. He has a smarts. I watched him from press alignment. So he's in press. He squeezes the in-breaking route. They have a flare out. He peeled off of that, made a great tackle short of the sticks. So you can see he has some smartness. He reminds me a lot of Janoris Jenkins, Jack Rabbit, with how he plays. And I think for a period of time there, Janoris Jenkins was like a top 3 cornerback over a few years span. So if you told me I was getting that at pick 31, I love it. I think he has a lot of good stuff with how he plays. And I'm excited to continue to kind of dive into his film. But if you told me I'd pick 31, 49ers took him, I'd be all for that. So then that'll allow you to have Charvarius Ward on the outside, have Diamador Lenoir on the outside, and then in nickel situations, slide Lenoir inside, and instead of Ambry Thomas, you got Kool-Aid out there.
Mm-hmm.
And I think he's a stickier man coverage guy with better feet than Ambry. And there's things I like about Ambry, but I like Kool-Aid more as a prospect.
And my understanding is Demo wants to play outside. I'm not sure if he likes playing a nickel, but I'm not sure. I guess it doesn't necessarily matter what he likes to do if he's under contract, right?
I can see that being the case. Nickel is hella hard. Like everybody, from a physical standpoint, cornerback is the physical and mental. Like cornerback is the hardest. Like just defensive back, like corner, slot, whatever, outside corner. But even more specific, nickel is harder because you're involved in every level. You're blitzing more. You're involved in more run fits. You have to be on page with the outside guys, the corner, but also the linebackers and the safeties with some of the combos and different things you do defensively. So there's a lot more on you mentally as opposed to being an outside corner. It's like, cover 1. All right, cover 2, cover 3. Okay, cool. And it's like more like it's just easier. You're just more worried for the most part about like kind of your job more so than a nickel, which is responsible for a lot more. So I could see why he's like, man, get me on the outside.
If the 49ers had Charvarius Ward, Diamador Lenoir, and Kool-Aid McKinstry, is that the best DB room in the NFL, or is there someone else better to you?
Oh, hold on real quick. Somebody in the chat says he wants that contract negotiation leverage. And I don't know if he's talking about Diamador Lenoir with that, but if he is, that makes a lot of sense because outside corners get paid way more than nickels. So I don't even know if that's what he's talking about, but that just kind of sparked that thought. So, yeah.
No, Demo, I mean, I love the way he tackles too, so which makes him another good reason for him to be at the nickel. But if we had those 3 guys, Kool-Aid, Demo, and Charvarius, would that be the best DB room in the NFL to you?
I don't know if it'd be the best, but it'd be a really good one, and I feel like it'd probably be the most confidence I've felt about a secondary maybe since let's say I think heading into the 2020 season when you had Richard Sherman coming off of an all-pro year, even though he wasn't like, Sherm, but he was still like, okay, he's still a good corner. You had a Keller Witherspoon, who I felt like was kind of starting caliber corner, but you also had Emmanuel Mosley, who was overtaking Witherspoon, and I felt like, oh man, you're really good with him being a starter. And then like your reserve guy was Jason Verrett, who actually ended up playing more than most of those other guys and had a really strong 2020 season. So that was a really good room. That might be, I think this one that you're talking about now, if you add Kool-Aid to the mix, would kind of rival that because it'd be younger and a little bit more athletic.
Yeah, I would. I mean, I wouldn't be mad at it. I know, I want the offensive line. We'll talk about the draft here more in just a second. But good question, Corey. I think you might be right there. I'll talk more about it here in a second. And then GTC says it's QC, Big Crocky. We need the details buttoned up. What was he talking? What are you talking about? Your last tweet? Talking about Kyle? I see what you're saying. Yeah. All right, GTC. Appreciate super chats, guys. Thank you very much. Some more important things I want to talk about Speaking of Brandon Aiyuk, Colts just signed Pittman for 3 years, $71 million, $46 million guaranteed. Same draft class as Brandon Aiyuk. What does that mean for Brandon Aiyuk's extension? You think he's deserves more than Pittman?
Man, that's a nice signing right there. That's over 20, about 23
Like
million
20,
a year.
yeah,
And I think for 49er fans, if you're not familiar with Michael Pittman, and understandably so, like, it's not like you see them on TV a lot, but he has been really good, and they've had to rely on him for a lot. Pittman has been good. He's been really good. So see him get about 23 million a year. If the 49ers likely would try to come in around that same number, if I had to guess, will be able to get more. We'll see. But I think one thing about Pittman getting that, 3 years, he'll be able to re-up and still be fairly young. So he probably, kind of likes that part about it. But yeah, I see in the chat, BA definitely gets more. BA gets more. Maybe, but again, y'all gotta watch some Colts games. And y'all not seeing them, and their quarterback situation ass. You know what I'm saying? Like, it hasn't been great. They've had to play with Gardner Minshew. Pittman he's good. He's really good. If he was on the 49ers and he's the third or fourth option in the offense and in the passing game, what would his numbers look like with his ability? So, we'll see. I bet he, gets more, but I think Pittman, I think some of the 49 fans are underselling kind of what he's capable of doing a little bit, because I don't think they've really watched him.
Yeah, and the 49ers said that they want to extend Brandon Aiyuk immediately this week. They're on record saying that. Typically, that's not how they get down. They usually wait till the very end, the last minute, and sometime in July to handle this stuff. Do you think this gets done earlier because they want to take advantage of that salary cap money, or do you think it's typical 49ers contract dealings, wait till the last minute?
Man, that fifth year money, they kind of got him locked up for year 5. So Pittman had to get re-signed, right? Like he got drafted 32, 33 overall.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
So, it's like, okay, we gotta do something with this guy right now, or he's gonna hit the free agent market. You see T. Higgins right now. They're like, okay, he's like, nah, man, just trade me out of here, because they got to figure something out with T. Higgins right now, right? He's like, nah, just trade me. Brandon Aiyuk, man, you got that 5th year option. So you can kind of, if you want to make something shake and you want to be able to play with the money by extending him now and being able to get him at a lower cap this year, then great. But if I had to guess, it's something that doesn't get done yet, but maybe, like you said, closer to training camp.
Yeah, and here's the thing, man. They really can't afford Brandon Aiyuk at $25 million and Debo at so-and-so million moving forward. Now, they could do it this season, but that would be it for me. I don't see them moving it past this season. Here's my question for you, man. The 49ers just got rid of Arik Armstead. They're talking to Cabo Click leader Kyle Juszczyk, because both of their contracts are 2 of the worst contracts on this roster. Kittle's is pretty bad. There's a couple other bad ones. But Debo's, now that Arik Armstead is gone, Debo's is clearly the worst contract on this team. Is Debo on the table for the 49ers right now, or do you think he's good at least this year?
I think he's good at least this year. At least this year.
Okay.
In an ideal world for the 49ers, you let Aiyuk play out his 5th year option. You keep Debo Samuel. Next off season, you see if you can potentially move Debo, and in that process, you can slap a franchise tag on Brandon Aiyuk and then come up with a long-term contract situation for him. So if I had to guess, that would be more of how the 49ers would ideally like to do things. Hopefully in that time, Brandon Aiyuk doesn't become like disgruntled by feeling like, man, I should be paid right now. I don't want to go out here on this 5th year option money. What is Brandon Aiyuk's 5th year option money? 14 million?
Yeah, 14.
Yeah, see.
Yeah.
When you are in 14 million, for me, I'll take that right now. But when you're Aiyuk and you're looking at other guys from your class, I can only imagine what T. Higgins, what he's probably finna get. I can only imagine what we just saw what Pittman, got. So Yeah, that's tough. You seen the other guys get paid, and it's
Yeah.
like, well, I got to pay for 14 million. Hell no.
And that might make him petty for, moving forward, right? Like if you give him the 5th-year option for this coming season, is he going to want to stay here moving forward? Maybe the Niners don't care. I don't know. I think personally, I think there's discussions about Debo. I don't know if they're going to do anything about him, but I think they're at least looking at that contract because that's a heavy hitter contract. If they're looking at Arik Armstead's contract and Kittle and Juice and all these guys, they got to be at least looking at that contract like, damn, that's a lot of money. And at least thinking about it. Now, whether anything transpires from it, I don't know. Johnny here says Debo's going to restructure. I hope they don't do that with Debo, man, because to me, he's on the decline. I would love to be wrong, but he's 28 years old. If you start extending and restructuring Debo, he's one of the players to me, like Fred Warner, I'm good with. Diamond Lenore, I'm good with. Charvarius Ward, I'm good with. But Debo, I don't want to push. I don't want to kick that can down the road. How would you feel about a Debo restructure?
Yeah, I that's another one where I'd kind of this year I just wouldn't mess with him at all. They freed up a lot of money with all these other contract negotiation things they're doing. You talk about Fred Warner, freeing up a bunch of money and trying to do that with Kyle Juszczyk, and then you're gonna have some money moving forward because of Armstead. Debo is not someone I just would not mess with his contract right now.
Yeah, agree. Same person. It also wouldn't surprise me if they traded Debo post June 1st. I know I'm probably the only one that's I just really think that's a possibility with how much this guy costs. But we'll see. I want to talk to you about free agency, Crock. I got a couple guys. I guess Greenard just signed with the Vikings. So he's off my list. I had him on here, but I guess he's going to the Vikings. Minshew, forget about him because Brandon Allen just signed with the 49ers. So DJ Jones, I think, is a real possibility, depending on what the Broncos do. And the fact that the Vikings side, Greenard, however you say his damn name, to me means they're moving on from Danielle Hunter, I would assume. And Danielle Hunter has been my fantasy free agent fantasy want all season. What do you think about DJ Jones coming to the Niners? Danielle Hunter, do you think that's a possibility? And who else would you want the 49ers to look at in free agency?
I think when it comes to free agency, I'm not as big on guys as other people. I always feel like teams get rid of a player for a specific reason unless it's very clear it's about money and this guy still has a lot in the tank. I think that DJ Jones and Danielle Hunter, DJ Jones will serve a big purpose in the 49ers run defense, which I think kind of lacked a little bit at times last year. So you bring him in, I think it helps improve that. And you look at Danielle Hunter, it's like, we don't need you to be the double-digit sack a year guy that you've been. We just need you to be better than Chase Young and Drake Jackson and Randy Gregory or whoever else the 49ers have brought in as of late. So I think Danielle Hunter is better than those guys. You bring him in and it's like, hey, just be good opposite Nick Bosa. So I think those are two moves right there. I prioritize it from the 49ers. Jones, depending on what happens with him, and definitely Hunter.
Yeah, if they can get DJ Jones and Danielle Hunter, then they filled all those empty spots on this defensive line, and then they can really just focus on best player available in the draft. So that's really what I hope they do. I hope they solve the missing pieces in free agency, and I think DJ Jones and Danielle. To me, if the 49ers have Nick Bosa, DJ Jones, Javon Hargrave, and Danielle Hunter, that is an upgrade over last year to me by far. And then they can really focus on the draft, just best player available. Would that line be a better line to you than last year's line?
If you have Danielle Hunter, you have Danielle Hunter in there because I think the world of edge rushers, and just their impact on the game, really at every level. So you add him in there with DJ Jones replacing Arik Armstead. I'd like that more.
Yeah.
But it's because of Danielle Hunter. Like, you take Danielle Hunter out, but then I would like last year's better.
Yeah. What do you think about the rumors of Bosa and Khalil Mack? I'm gonna tell you right now, I don't want Joey Bosa. I know a lot of people do. I'm not with that. He's played 14 games over the last 2 years and has 8.5 sacks, I want to say. Over the last 2 years, 14 games, 7 games a year, 8.5 sacks total over those 2 years. I don't know, man. I'm not up for it unless he wants to come here on the cheap to play with his brother. But how do you feel about Bosa? And then I guess we'll talk about Khalil Mack too.
I think for him, because unless they cut him, which is something that potentially can happen, what would it take to get Bosa over? But you said kind of one key thing, right? Over the last 2 years, 8.5 sacks. Man, he's only played 14 games. But man, if he's able to play a 17 game season, and that's a big if, he has dealt with his fair share of injuries, then that would be great, right? Like even if you got 14 games out of the regular season and he missed 4 games, but he got 8.5 sacks, like that would be better than anybody not named Bosa for the 49ers last year, right? So there's still the ability there. Obviously, you want him to be healthy. That's something that I definitely would be open to. And him or Danielle Hunter, I still might lean more Danielle Hunter, but Bosa playing next to his brother might kind of light a different type of fire on him. I think the 49ers organization, you hear this, just the locker room in general, you hear this from some of the players that come over. Chase Young kind of mentioned it as well. They have a great environment. They have a great atmosphere. And I think it makes guys want to be the best version of themselves. And maybe if you can kind of get Big Bosa to get back more into that, I think that would be a good pickup.
One thing that plays into this, Brandon Staley is the new something or other assistant head coach for the 49ers, defensive guru. My understanding is that Joey Bosa and Brandon Staley had a bad relationship. Do you think that plays into it at all, or do you think that Joey Bosa probably doesn't give a damn?
I think it plays into it from the standpoint of Kyle and how much he values the opinion of Staley.
Yeah.
So if Kyle is like, hey man, what do you think about Bosa? And then you start hearing all these kind of behind the scenes things, which I mean, that goes on. I think we look at all these players, just the player, the coach, whatever. But there's a lot that goes on behind the scenes with just interaction and whatnot. And if you listen to some of these guys after they retire, you get to hear some really crazy stories and dang, that's what was going on. If it was a toxic environment and you're hearing Staley's version of it, that might not bode well for Bosa.
Yeah, and I'm sure he wants to play for his brother. Maybe that will save a little bit of money. But Joey Bosa, to me, this is a sentimental thing. A lot of fans love this kind of shit, right? Excuse me. They're like, oh, the Bosa brothers. They love that kind of stuff. But really, I could care less what your last name is. It's about how you produce. Are you healthy? And I would rather have guys like Khalil Mack from the Chargers would be a better option to me over Bosa. How do you feel about the Niners bringing Khalil Mack over?
I think Khalil Mack, and again, maybe because he's on the Chargers and they kind of went under the radar a little bit somehow, but he's still playing very well. Yeah. He's still playing good. So if you told me, man, you get you get Khalil Mack in here for a year, I'd take that. I would take that over Bosa.
Yes.
But again, I just said that I would take Danielle Hunter over Bosa as well, straight up. So
I agree with both of those. I mean, Khalil Mack's a Hall of Fame player. So if the 49ers could land him, he's still playing at a really high level. To me, it's Danielle Hunter, Khalil Mack. Either one, honestly. Either one of those guys I would be happy with. Bosa, maybe, depending on how much money he's willing to take to come over here and play with his brother. I think that's going to be the key for me. Let me ask you this, brother. Draft day. I've ran several mock drafts. I've seen a million mock drafts. A lot of people have Kingsley. I'm not even going to try to butcher this guy's name. He's one of my, shout out to the Polynesians, but this one's a tough one. But draft Kingsley Suama. I don't even want to kill. I'm going to butcher it. But he seems to be the same guy that's jumping up on everybody's mock drafts for the 49ers. Offensive tackle. My understanding he's a little bit raw, but he has the potential. Probably not a year one starter, I'm guessing. Are you wanting the 49ers to go after a guy like Kingsley, offensive tackle, or what's your thought? I think we talked before, and you kind of want best player available. Would you be mad if they got Kingsley, or how do you want them to approach the draft?
I'm really big on just not forcing a position. I think that's when people get in more trouble, right? It's like, oh, we trade Buckner. Okay, let's get Kinlaw. And you kind of forced it a little bit. when now again, maybe Kinlaw, that's just the highest player on the board at that time, and he was someone that was thought of as being a top, 15 or so pick. So, how forced was it? But I felt like they kind of forced that position a little bit. If I'm 49 sitting at 31, yeah, I'm really big on just best player available. Now, I have not watched Kingsley at all, so don't take my word on it. Maybe I watch him and I'm like, oh man, I really like this kid.
Yeah.
After watching him, maybe he's somebody that I would say, oh yeah, you take him at 31. There's a guy I just watched. I watched him I was watching him Thursday. I can't think of his name. He was playing tackle. I really liked him. I think he's projected to be a guard more than a tackle. Gosh, who is he playing for? Can't think of his name. Me and Peacock are going to talk about him tonight, so I got to go back watch some more of him and a couple other guys. But he's a left tackle. He had a mean streak. Led the way he finished off stuff. How he dealt with speed a little bit. You saw him get bull rushed a little bit, but I think he's someone that projects to be more of a guard. What is his name? But I liked him a lot more than some of the other guys I've seen mocked to the 49ers at 31 as far as the offensive line goes.
You kind of want best player available, right?
Yeah.
Yeah. What about, I've seen this a couple times too. The guy who broke the record for the NFL 40 at the combine, Xavier Worthy, he keeps showing up, being available for the 49ers around that 31 spot. Would you be how would you feel the 49ers trade Debo post June 1st and draft Xavier Worthy?
I don't like the thought of the 49ers not having Aiyuk or Debo and drafting a receiver because Kyle Shanahan has shown that these young receivers, it takes a little bit of time for them to get acclimated to the offense, and then he just doesn't want to play them, right? Like, I mean, for him to say Brandon Aiyuk would not have played as a rookie if the 49ers receiver room was just healthier, I'm just like, damn, like he can be an asshole a little bit. So if you are going to take a guy, like let's say Xavier Worthy, then I think you really want Aiyuk and Debo there as well, so we can kind of ease that transition a little bit. But as far as Xavier Worthy, the prospect, he's not a big guy. He's a slight guy, but obviously he's a blazer. I think watching his film, he's more than just speed. He's gonna get the with John Ross or Marquise Goodwin. And some of those guys are a little bit more. Well, really, with Ross, I don't know what happened with him. He actually had like a lot of good stuff. I don't know why it didn't work out. Sometimes it's up here, especially at the receiver position, because there's so much thrown on you. And no matter how fast you run, if you can't get it here and be good with the sight adjustments and be able to process those things quick, you just might not be good at the NFL level. But man, what about guys like T.Y. Hilton? And when I watch Xavier Worthy, I see a lot of like T.Y. Hilton type player. Now, I think the thing that is tough, I don't know how well he blocks. That was one thing I noted. Just didn't look like there was all the effort there as a blocker. So when Kyle Shanahan cuts on the film, like, will he like that about him? And I think that tells you more about the mindset as opposed to just, can this guy be good at the next level? And then at the catch point, I felt like that wasn't his strongest thing. And that's kind of one of my prerequisites for receivers. I don't care if you're small, right? I don't care if you're slight. I don't care if you're skinny, whatever. But if you play big at the catch point and you're making these contested catches, you're bringing those things in, then, okay, I can work with that. And you look at like Devontae Smith, a lot of people are like, oh, Devontae Smith, he's so skinny. He's so this, he's so. Well, show me on film where it pops up that his lack of size or, and weight is an issue. Maybe a little bit in the run game, a little bit, but the effort was 100% there. But they couldn't touch him off the line of scrimmage. He killed everybody there. Route running, he was terrific. He consistently put pressure on cornerbacks. Catch point, he was amazing. Didn't matter how big a guy was. He going up and he was grabbing over guys. And people wanted to kind of knock him because of his weight. If you're doing all those things and it's consistent on film, I don't care about how much you weigh. The issue with Xavier Worthy, those things were not consistent with him, which is why Devontae Smith was a top 10 pick, and Xavier Worthy, we're talking about him at pick 31. Either way, I don't necessarily know if his style of play meshes with what the 49ers do.
Yeah. I don't know if, I mean, not to bring this back up, but I don't know if Xavier Worthy's running, a 9 route or whatever. If he's going, I don't know if Brock can catch up with that speed, man, to be honest. If I'm being real, I don't want to bring this back up. You got to have a good arm to hit this guy. Size never hurt why can't I think of? Oh boy, he went to Cal. Small dude, played on the Eagles.
Deshaun Jackson.
Never really messed with him, right? I mean,
weighed in less than 170,
Yeah.
And he's one of the best deep ball threats in NFL history. Not the best, but one of the best. Like he was just a terrific guy for being under 170, playing coming into the NFL at around 5'11" and be able to do what he did as a return man and a receiver. Tremendous. But yeah, his size, that was not an issue for D-Jack.
Yeah, man. If you don't need as much size if you got that kind of crazy speed, right? That makes up for it a little bit.
But you don't want to rely on it. Like if you have an offense, it was great for Deshaun Jackson to play, and it's like, oh, Michael Vick, and Michael Vick can throw it as far as he wants, and D-Jack be able to run underneath it. The 49ers offense is so much predicated on timing, rhythm, more so than a lot of other offenses, that it kind of unless the 49ers just say, okay, we're going to start making a focal point to really utilize speed in our offense. I think they like guys that can clear things out and maybe take a shot here and there, but definitely not to the extent of where you take advantage of having a Deshaun Jackson type guy. So.
Yeah. Well, I appreciate you, Crock, man. I'm sorry I missed last week. I was just not feeling it. I couldn't get some sleep, but good to get back here with you, man. Good to see you again. Great show. We had a lot to talk about. We had over close to 600 people watching this show, man. I appreciate you all very much. One thing I want to mention, I'm almost at 8,000 subs. I think I need like 20, 30 something to get there. If you haven't subbed to my channel, please do so. Make sure you're subbed to Crock's channel, and then make sure you join Locked On 49ers. When's your next show on Locked On, Arik?
Oh, man, Locked On 49ers come at you guys 5 days a week. We got the YouTube. We got the audio, the listens. You know what I'm saying? It ain't like the end of the season, but we're still up there, man. One of the top. Actually, I mean, we are the top podcast on the Locked On Network that has over 200 shows. So appreciate all the San Francisco 49 fans that tune in to Locked On to listen to me and Peacock. And we're trying to figure out, man, got to do something for the draft. We actually had somebody reach out and said that they would fly me and Peacock to Southern California to do a draft show at his bar. I don't think we followed back up with him, so that might not come about, but maybe we'll do something more in the Bay where we get with a bar and we have like a live draft show. We're eating food, we're drinking, whatever the case is. So we'll see if we do something for the draft, get something going. That
would be dope, man. How's your 7-on-17 doing, by the way?
Doing cool, man. Doing good. They're doing good. They're doing good.
Yeah.
Lot of really good, talent on there. A lot of guys getting offers rolling in for those kids. So, it's exciting to see, these kids get that kind of opportunity.
Yeah, that's dope, man. I love that. All right. Question of the day for you guys in the chat, man. This is for the guys in the chat after the show. Leave it in the comments. Who do you want the 49ers to sign in free agency? Leave it in the comments. I want to get your take. Let me know, who do you want the 49ers to sign in free agency? Crock, man, you're the best, brother. I appreciate you, man. I'm going to be back Wednesday with the coach at 10 a.m. And then Friday, I'm having a draft special with Jesse Naylor and Marco Martinez. So make sure you guys tune in for that. Make sure you like Crock's channel. Make sure you tune in to Locked On 49ers. Crock, appreciate you, brother.
All right. I'll see y'all.
Thank you so much for watching the Ryan G. Hensley Show. Your support is greatly appreciated. If you haven't yet, subscribe to the channel. The Ryan G. Hensley Show is brought to you by Hensley Real Estate and Mortgage. I've been operating my real estate business in the state of California since 2009, and I would love to help your family. We are also sponsored by Hensley Solar. I can put solar on your house in up to 38 states. Underdog Fantasy is a sponsor of the channel. Please check out the details in the description to see how you can join Underdog Fantasy and get $100 matched in your initial deposit. And finally, I want to give a shout out to my sponsor, Blue Water Credit. They are the best credit repair company I've ever dealt with. If you want to fix your credit, reach out to Blue Water Credit. Details in the description for all of my sponsors. Again, thanks so much for watching.